Exposed, after 12 shocking mockeries of her late mother, she discovers the life-changing truth. In the bustling little town of Maplewood, whispers filled the air like the sweet scent of freshly baked cookies. Sarah, a determined single mother at 28, felt every scrutiny. After losing her beloved mother, a community beacon of kindness, she quickly learned how merciless the neighborhood could be. Instead of celebrating her mother's compassion, they gasped at her thriftiness and mocked her relentless work for social justice. Each derisive glance shattered Sarah's heart anew. She longed for the days when she could hear praise for her mother's spirit rather than scorn for her choices. Every day at the grocery store or the park, she heard the hushed tones from neighbors who knew her mother well. "Did you see how she frugally shops? Typical," someone would sneer. "Always fighting for the underdog, so misplaced," another added with a condescending smirk. Sarah gripped her shopping cart tighter, feeling the sting of their words weighing heavily on her chest. Would they ever understand her mother's sacrifices? Her heart ached, not just for her loss, but for the misjudgment of the woman who raised her. But as summer approached, a flicker of hope ignited within her. The Maplewood Bake-Off drew nearer, and Sarah decided it was time to reclaim her mother's legacy. This wasn't just about baking, it was about the fierce spirit she inherited. Late nights filled her kitchen with the gentle hum of mixers and the rich aroma of sugar and spice as she whipped up treats that would make her mother proud. Each cupcake was crafted with love, while her son, Ethan, expertly helped with sprinkles and tasting. Despite the emotional storm brewing inside her, Sarah felt a twinge of happiness. Perhaps this competition would grant her the chance to shine, just as her mother had done for so many. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into sleepless nights as the bake-off loomed closer. Yet with every dough kneaded and every batter mixed, Sarah uncovered more than just recipes. She unearthed her mother's legacy, her generous heart hidden in the depths of community involvement. While gathering supplies, an unexpected conversation with an old friend revealed something astonishing. Her mother had silently funded scholarships for local children, an act of selflessness dismissed by meddling by the same voices now judging her. "Your mom was something special," he said, his eyes glistening with respect. "People don't always see the full story." Could it be that the judgments hurled at her weren't just out of ignorance, but a refusal to acknowledge the beauty of her mother's sacrifices? Just as this truth began to brew powerful resolve within Sarah, disaster struck. A broken oven threatened to derail her carefully laid plans. Doubts crept in. What if she wasn't enough? What if the whispers never stopped? With the bake-off day drawing near and the horror of being judged looming over her, Sarah stood at the crossroads between despair and defiance. Would she embrace the truth about her mother and fight against the ridicule? Or would she remain shackled by the town's harsh perceptions? Heart racing, she had only one thought. She had to rise for the sake of herself and Ethan. The morning of the bake-off dawned, wrapped in a soft layer of mist. Sarah awoke with a jumble of nerves twisting her stomach. This was it, the day she had been preparing for, the day she would face the community that scrutinized her every move. As she glanced at the clock, she felt time waltzing past her, teasing her with its haste. Ethan, still nestled in bed, was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in her mother's heart. Sarah tiptoed to the kitchen, her hands trembling as she reached for her prized recipe book.
It was her mother's, full of notes written in bright ink, like tiny hugs guiding her through every step. The thought of her mother's gentle encouragement motored her resolve. No more would she hide. Today was about pride, not just in her cupcakes, but in what they represented: love, resilience, and the spirit of a woman who had given everything for others. With the sun rising higher, the aroma of warm vanilla slowly danced through the kitchen. Sarah mixed the batter with rhythm, each beat of the whisk echoing her determination. She infused a piece of herself into every swirl, sneaking glances at the calendar that marked the day with a bold red circle. The bake-off logo sparkled like a beacon calling her towards her destiny. Ethan wandered in, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. A smile broke across his face as he inhaled the sweet scent wafting through their home. "Can I help, Mommy?" he asked, bouncing on his toes, excitement radiating from him like sunshine. "Of course! We need to sprinkle some magic on these cupcakes, don't we?" she laughed, her heart swelling with warmth. This was their moment, their cocoon of joy amid the chaos outside. Together they filled the cupcake liners, the kitchen filled with giggles and flowery puffs. As they worked side by side, Sarah felt a renewed energy. But as the clock ticked agonizingly close to the start time, Sarah's heart thudded with doubt again. What if her cupcakes weren't good enough? What if the townspeople still saw her mother's legacy as something to mock rather than celebrate?
Just then, her phone buzzed. A message from an old neighbor, someone who used to sit at her mother's kitchen table to drink tea and share stories. "I'm rooting for you. Your mom would be so proud. Can't wait to taste your cupcakes." Tears stung Sarah's eyes. A voice from the past reminding her of the love that resided in her mother's actions. She wiped her face and took a deep breath, grounding herself. This wasn't just a competition for cake, it was a chance to redefine her mother's narrative, to show the town who her mother truly was. As they sped to the venue, Sarah's stomach twisted with anticipation. The town square buzzed with activity, filled with colorful tents and eager competitors. She found the judging table at the heart of it all, her cupcakes glistening under bright lights, waiting patiently for their moment. But as they set their tray down, Sarah caught sight of the onlookers. The very same voices that had tormented her echoed in her mind. Would they see talent and heart today, or would the whispers of judgment return? With trembling hands she moved towards the judges. The time had come to reclaim her mother's legacy, and Sarah took one last deep breath, hoping for a moment of connection. As Sarah began to speak, her voice found strength amidst the chaos around her. "These cupcakes are my mother's recipe, and they hold her spirit." What she didn't expect was the sudden silence that cloaked the crowd as they turned their attention to her. Would the truth break through the whispers and show her mother's light, or would it all end in another round of scornful murmurs? The hush was palpable. Sarah's heart raced, each pulse feeling like a drumbeat in her ears. The sun glinted off the judges' table, highlighting the glossy mounds of frosting atop her cupcakes. She could feel every eye on her, weighing her words and intentions, and for a moment doubt threatened to claw its way back into her heart. "And they hold her spirit," she continued, her voice quivering yet resolute. "My mother used to say that baking was like love, meant to nourish and bring joy. Every ingredient in these cupcakes represents her warmth, her kindness, and how she always sought the happiness of others." As she spoke, she glanced out at the crowd. Faces were transformed. Some shifted from indifference to curiosity, and others from judgment to respect. A few nearby attendees leaned closer, nodding as her words took root. For the first time it felt as if the weight of their gazes might be lifting. Could it be that her mother's story was finally being understood? Just then she caught sight of Mrs. Anderson, the woman who had once led the chorus of Mockery. The older lady's brows were furrowed, a hint of surprise flickering across her features. Sarah swallowed hard. This was the moment. "I hope you taste not just the cupcakes, but the love my mother infused in every recipe." It's about more than just winning. It's about remembering who we are as a community and how we treat each other. Sarah finished her pitch, her heart hammering against her chest. Was this how her mother felt every time she fed someone? A blend of vulnerability and hope hit her, sending a curious shiver down her spine. As the judges began to deliberate, a buzz of murmurs filled the air. Her mother really was special, she heard someone say, cutting through the noise. A moment later, Mrs. Anderson stepped forward, pushing through the crowd. With an unexpected softness in her voice, she said, "Sarah, I didn't know. I'm sorry for what I said, and for what everyone else has said. Your mother was a treasure." The crowd shifted, murmurs morphing into quiet gasps. Sarah stood there, stunned. Was this the breakthrough she had hoped for? But before she could fully process the shift in attitudes, a voice broke through the atmosphere like thunder. It belonged to a man at the back, who, with a mocking tone, shouted, "You think a few cupcakes can erase what she was? This isn't a fairy tale." The crowd faltered, caught between the two opposing energies. Sarah turned to face him, her heart pounding. She couldn't let this derail everything. "I don't expect anyone to forget the past overnight, but my mother taught me something valuable. We can learn from our mistakes and build something better. It's never too late to change our narrative." Gasps replaced whispers as her words hung in the air, striking a chord that Sarah hadn't anticipated. The crowd was quiet again, waiting. What would happen next? Would they rally behind her, or retreat into the familiar realm of cruel laughter? Then Ethan tugged at her apron, his innocent eyes wide with concern. "Mommy, are you okay?" Her heart melted, reminding her of the love that had brought her here in the first place. "I am, sweetie," she whispered back, offering him a smile. But she knew that despite her internal resilience, it was still a fragile moment. Would the crowd embrace her message, or would they draw back into old habits? The judges returned with their decision in hand, and she felt the collective breath of the audience echo with tension. The moment of truth was upon her. Would she walk away with her head held high, or would the shadows of mockery resurface? As she stared ahead, the uncertainty loomed large. The stakes never felt higher. What would they reveal? She recalled her mother's laughter, the way it would fill their small kitchen, the warmth radiating from the oven, and the smell of freshly baked goods wafting through the air. A faint smile crept upon her lips despite the worry. If only her mom were here to witness this. If only she could feel the way Sarah was trying to honor her legacy. Finally, the lead judge, a woman with silver hair tucked into a neat bun, cleared her throat. "Thank you, Sarah. Your heartfelt words and delicious cupcakes have given us much to think about." The crowd remained hushed, some leaning in closer as anticipation hung thickly around them. She felt her heart thudding in her throat. What would they say? Would it bring the acceptance she craved? Would it be enough to shift hearts and minds in this room? While we cannot ignore the past, sometimes it is the stories we tell and the changes we make that define us, the judge continued, and Sarah's breath hitched. Today, we celebrate not just the best cupcake, but the best spirit behind them. Cheers erupted from a section of the crowd, and Sarah glanced at Mrs. Anderson, who was now nodding, her eyes moist with understanding. "So, it is with great pleasure," the judge said, her voice building momentum, "that we award the first-place ribbon to Sarah." A roar broke loose, enveloping Sarah. Hugs and congratulatory pats rained down on her from strangers, friends, and even those who once turned away. It was surreal, like being caught in a warm embrace after standing out in the cold for too long. Ethan jumped up and down, his joy radiating. "Mommy, you did it! You won!" Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes, a blend of happiness and relief swirling within her. But just as she leaned down to sweep her son into her arms, that mocking voice traveled through the throng. "But does that really change anything?" She froze. The man was relentless. "You may have won their hearts today, but what happens tomorrow? You think those old wounds vanish with a ribbon?" The jubilation in the room wavered, uncertainty creeping back in. She forced herself to keep breathing, to point her chin up and face the man head on. "It's not about erasing the past," she said strongly, her voice steadying. "It's about creating a future. My mother fought her whole life to make things better. It didn't happen overnight, and neither will it for us. But we cannot stand by and let hurt win." A ripple of understanding sparked among the crowd, blending hope with her words. Someone stepped forward, a woman she recognized from the audience who had looked skeptical before. "She's right. Healing takes time," the woman stated, her voice strong. "Maybe we start by owning our mistakes." Other voices chimed in, calling for change, encouraging a dialogue that hadn't existed before. But amidst the emerging camaraderie, Sarah felt a weight form in her belly. Could this moment truly lead to transformation, or was it just another fleeting spark in a sea of darkness? The judges stepped back, allowing the crowd and confusion to take the lead. Sarah stood side by side with Ethan, ready to face whatever may come next. As the atmosphere shifted, she felt the profound connection of a community awakening. The curtain was only just lifting, but as she looked towards the horizon, a new question weighed on her heart. Would they continue to rise together, or would the shadows of their past drag them down once more? The crowd's energy was electric, a pulsating vibration that seemed to echo Sarah's own racing heart. She stood wading through the sea of well-wishers, still absorbing the weight of her win. The applause swelled around her, filling the space with a sense of community. But among the cheers, that man's voice lingered, a harsh reminder of the uncertainties that still plagued her. As she hugged Ethan tightly, she spotted him again, the man who challenged her spirit. He leaned against a wall, arms crossed, an indifferent smirk on his face. Was he there to gloat? It made her heart race, realizing how quickly a celebratory moment could turn dark.
She broke free from her friend's embraces and approached him, feeling the weight of every step. "Why do you care so much?" she confronted, her voice steady but gentle. "Do you really want to see us fail that badly?" He raised an eyebrow, his confidence unyielding. "It's not about failure, it's about truth." His tone was dismissive, like an old wound that simply refused to heal. "You think today's celebration changes anything? It's just a distraction from what's real." "Maybe," she argued, frustration bubbling up. "But isn't it easier to work towards healing together than to sit in our own hurt? You have no idea what we've fought for." "It isn't about fighting for ribbons, Sarah. What happens when the spotlight fades?" His eyes glinted with something darker beneath. "Tell me, when the applause stops, what will you do next?" A familiar voice broke through the haze, pulling her gaze. It was Mrs. Anderson, walking towards them with purpose. "What he means is, change doesn't happen overnight. How will you keep this momentum going?" The crowd, once buoyant, began to murmur. Doubt was creeping in again, and Sarah felt the collective breath of uncertainty weighing on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, glancing at Ethan, who looked up at her with wide, hopeful eyes. She felt her mother's presence with her, stirring a quiet strength. "I don't have all the answers yet," she replied, her voice firmer now. "But this is a start. Let's begin the conversation. We can't expect change to just fall into our laps." "Then what's your plan, cupcake queen?" the man challenged, crossing his arms with renewed skepticism. Her heart thundered against her ribs, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "My plan is to bring us together. I want to organize community meetings. We can share our stories, our truths. We must listen to one another."
The crowd was still. The only sound the soft rustle of papers in the judge's hands as they exchanged glances. "That's a start, but will you let them speak too?" Mrs. Anderson chipped in gently. "What about those who've also suffered?" "Absolutely," Sarah agreed, nodding earnestly. "This isn't just my story. It belongs to all of us. I want to break the cycle of silence." The murmurs grew again, this time with intrigue. People began to step closer, drawn in to a suggestion of unity. She felt energy shift, each small whisper carrying a potent promise of something more, while others still held back, shaking their heads, afraid of the vulnerability that came with honest conversations. Behind them, the child's laughter punctured the tension. Ethan was playing with a few of his friends, a moment unfazed by the surrounding doubts. Sarah knelt beside him, her heart swelling as she watched their carefree joy. Would these gatherings bring the peace he deserved? As voices lifted in hopeful chatter around her, Sarah stepped back to the forefront, determined to bridge the old wounds and new beginnings. She was ready for this transformation. But a quick glance at the man lurking on the sidelines revealed a flicker of anger in his eyes. What if he decided to stir the pot again? As the crowd rearranged itself, she understood that her challenge was just beginning. The past loomed like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its fury at any moment. Would she be able to weather it, or would they all drown in the surge of history? A hush fell over the crowd, the buzz of conversation stifled by the weight of anticipation. Sarah could feel the eyes of the onlookers on her, curiosity mixed with skepticism reflected in their expressions. But it was that man who intrigued her the most. No longer lounging casually, he stood rigid, his focus locked onto her, his smirk fading slightly. "You want to open a dialogue?" he said, his voice laced with challenge. "How do you propose to include everyone? Not everyone wants to listen." His words hit hard, stirring a familiar unease in her gut. She remembered all those times her mother had said that the loudest voices are often the most heard, but it doesn't mean they hold the truth. "What if I'm the one who has to listen?" Sarah said, slowly, feeling a new resolve percolate. "What if I'm the first step towards changing things?" "Or a distraction from reality," he countered, his tone dropping a notch. "People are tired, Sarah. They're worn out from promises that lead to nowhere." Silence stretched around them, but Sarah felt the tension start to lift.
She spotted a few nodding heads among the crowd. Maybe there was a flicker of hope. "I've seen that exhaustion," Sarah replied, her voice gaining strength. "I've carried it. We can't ignore it any longer, but change begins with us. If just one person speaks—" "Then what?" he interrupted, shaking his head. "What if that one person's voice isn't heard, or, heaven forbid, it's the wrong one?"
"I think voices will emerge," she countered, feeling warmth pool in her chest. "Each person brings a different story. We can't let fear of being wrong hold us back from trying." The child's laughter cut through the air again, pulling at something deep in her heart. She glanced back at Ethan, who had captured the attention of a huddle of kids, all giggling in innocent play. It struck her then, those children didn't care about the scars or the past. They just wanted to join in on the fun. And maybe that's where it started, in the open-hearted connections they formed without the weight of history dragging them down. "I look out here and see hope," she said, spreading her arms wide, taking in the ever-growing crowd. "This isn't just about my journey, it's about all of us moving forward to rewrite our stories. We have the power to shape the future, together." "What's your angle?" the man shot back, clearly unconvinced. "You think you can get us all on board? This community is fractured." "I believe it can heal," Sarah insisted, eyes sparkling with an unyielding fire. "But only if we dare to start those tough conversations. We have to dig deep, listen to each other. Only then can we find the pieces to rebuild." Her fervor seemed to ripple through the crowd, igniting small nods and murmurs of agreement. It was enough to embolden her. Who here feels it? Who's willing to be part of this conversation? Slowly, as if awakening from a shared daze, hands began to rise. A buzz of enthusiasm spread, the mood shifting, becoming almost tangible. The man's face twisted in anger at the show of support, but something in him faltered, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The doubts that had shrouded the day began to dissolve, replaced by sparks of connection, as voices emerged from both the proud and the silent. The discomfort of vulnerability faded, replaced by the strength born from unity. Even Mrs. Anderson appeared brighter, her expression now hopeful rather than apprehensive. But just as Sarah felt a swell of triumph, the man straightened, launching back into the fray. "You'll see, Sarah, it's not as simple as you think. Being heard isn't enough. It's the struggles you refuse to face that will haunt you." The crowd gasped, caught between hope and fear. Sarah's heart sank a little, but she pressed on. "We can face it together. That's how we make the change we want." As her words hung in the air, the man adjusted his stance, an unsettling challenge lingering in his eyes. What was his next move? Was he merely a catalyst of doubt, or did he represent something much more sinister? As the crowd began to react, Sarah's pulse quickened, realizing the path ahead would demand far more than she had anticipated. Would her courage be enough to push through the shadows? A deep breath steadied Sarah. The crowd's energy buzzed like a live wire, crackling with uncertainty and hope. She locked gazes with the man, defiance etched on his face. Why did he want to keep them at arm's length? She could feel that simmering urge to throw up walls again, but she wouldn't let him. "Let's bring this into the light," she pressed. "Let's talk about the struggles, the doubts, the fear. It doesn't have to be this way. Together we can navigate through it." Somewhere in the back, a voice broke the rigid silence. "What if we don't even know where to start?" It was a woman, her eyes filled with the rawness of unvoiced stories. Sarah's heart ached for her. "We start by sharing our stories, just one voice at a time. You'd be surprised how much strength lies in simply being heard." Another voice joined in, hesitant but clear. "I've lost faith in dialogue.
From the corner emerged a man, his downcast eyes shifting nervously. "It always ends the same way." "Not this time," Sarah called out, the warmth in her chest igniting into flames of resolve. "Not if we choose to try again together." More hands shot up, faces revealing layers of worry, anger, and perhaps hope. The air felt electric. Was this what it meant to take the first step? She could taste the salt of her own tears, mixing with the fiery passion swirling inside her. "And what about the past?" the man chimed in, pushing back again. "You're ready to face it? Because I can promise you that ghosts don't vanish just because we want them to." His challenge hung ominously above them, but Sarah wasn't about to cower. "Maybe we won't banish the ghosts," she replied, her voice steady, "but we can learn to live with them. We can reshape their narrative." The crowd murmured, voices rising and falling like the tide, eyes darting between Sarah and the man who was still trying to sow doubt. But within that uncertainty lay the beginnings of healing. An older gentleman, gray-haired and weathered, stood up, his voice deep and gravelly. "I lost my son to what silence encourages. I won't lose more." His words penetrated the tension, striking a core that resonated with many present. Just like that, hearts softened, as his pain echoed through the crowd. They had all suffered in their own ways, covering their wounds with layers of silence. "It's time we give those wounds a voice," Sarah urged. "All of us." In that moment, as the crowd swirled with emotions, she noticed Mrs. Anderson stepping forward, her frail figure trembling. I've been so afraid to share my story, afraid of what might happen if people learn the truth." An invigorating silence fell, the whole community holding its breath for what was next. "But I've also felt the weight of carrying it alone," she continued slowly. "Maybe if we all speak, we can do something about it together." In an instant, energy shifted, heavily. The man's expression darkened. "You think bearing your wounds is going to fix this?" he said, disbelief etched on his features. "You think a few brave souls can change a community?" The energy brimming in the crowd surged. "Yes!"
Gasps erupted as the crowd instinctively pressed closer together, a mixture of desire to help and fear pulsating between them. The man who had resisted just moments before shifted back, tension coiling in the air again. "Who?" Sarah asked, stepping forward. "Who's coming? Are you safe?" The woman's breath hitched, her body vibrating with adrenaline and fear. "I can explain. Just don't let them take me." Sarah glanced back at her community, eyes wide with realization. This was not just about sharing stories anymore. This was a plea for action, a call to come together in a way they had not yet imagined. The woman's pain resonated deeply, reminding them all of the horrors they had been trying to forget. Around the crowd, conversations quickened, whispers of concern and disbelief bubbling up. Sarah could feel the energy shifting again, morphing into something more potent than just fear. "Listen," she shouted, trying to regain their focus. "If she needs help, then we stand by her. That's what we've talked about. Standing together means not turning away from what scares us." The man regarded her with an unreadable expression, perhaps reconsidering as his posture softened. Sections of the crowd began to murmur in agreement, bonds forming, knitting together with fresh commitment. "Let her speak," the older gentleman declared, stepping forward boldly, embodying the strength they all needed. "What do we need to do?" The moment stretched, heavy with anticipation, as all eyes returned to the young woman, awaiting her revelation. What horrors were chasing her? What truths would they have to confront together? But before she could answer, a distant cry echoed through the alley, and the hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stood up. A quick look back at the crowd told her they all felt it, the looming threat growing, pushing nerves tighter.
Was this woman the first domino they needed to tip into change, or a herald of deeper troubles? Sarah stood firm. They had come too far to back down now. Whatever it is, we'll face it, together. As the imminent danger approached, hearts raced, leaving everyone wondering, would they be able to protect one another, or would the shadows finally swallow their hopes? The air became charged. Sarah could hear the trembling of breaths all around her, a shared fear echoing and swirling beneath the surface. It was vulnerable, raw. The crowd's eyes were glued to the woman who had just stumbled into their midst. Her wide gaze reflected urgency. "Please," she urged again, her voice a desperate whisper. "You don't understand. They don't stop. They'll take me back, and then—" "What's back?" The question burst from Sarah's lips before she could hold it in. The crowd held its breath, filled with anticipation and dread. The young woman's fear was infectious, and Sarah's heart raced at the thought of what they might be facing. With a shaky hand, the woman loosened her grip on the bundle she'd held tight.
Slowly, she unwrapped a corner of the blanket. Gasps rose as a small, innocent face peeked out. The child curled in her arms, no older than 4, eyes wide and fearful. "They want her. They think they own her," the woman said, tears spilling over as she held the child protectively. "I escaped, but they'll come for us." A wave of murmurs swept through the group, shock mixing with determination. Mrs. Anderson clutched her chest, taking a half-step closer. "But why? Who are they?" "They're part of something bigger, something dark," the woman breathed through a trembling voice. "Please, I've seen what they do to those who don't comply. I swear you have to help us." Sarah stepped up to her, the noise of the crowd fading as she focused on the woman. "You're safe here. We'll help, I promise. Just tell us what you need." With a hesitant nod, the young woman inhaled deeply, steadying her voice. "We need to get to a safe place, somewhere they won't find us. They're relentless." Determination surged through Sarah. "All right, then we form a plan. If we work together, we can keep you safe. We all have homes, doors that can be bolted. I know one place." But before she could finish, the chilling sound of shouts erupted from the direction of the alley, cutting through their moment like a jagged knife. Shadowy figures emerged, silhouettes against the dim light of the street lamps. A few gasps broke free as the crowd instinctively moved closer together, faces filled with terror. "They're here!" the woman cried, tightening her hold on the child, fear radiating from her in palpable waves. The man from before, who had been skeptical, took a deep breath, his eyes steeling with resolve. "We must protect her. We can't let them take her. We stand together." Sarah met his gaze, the tension in the air thickening. "You, help me gather anything we can use to barricade the entrances. We need to buy ourselves time." All around, everyone sprang into action. Some pulled trash cans to block the narrow alleyway, while others grabbed anything heavy they could use to fortify their makeshift shelter. There was a new energy pulsing through the crowd, adrenaline overriding fear. They were taking a stand. As the shadows grew closer, the fierce shouts echoed off the walls, drawing nearer. Sarah could feel her heart thumping in her chest, a wild rhythm that matched the frantic energy enveloping them. But deep down, a question gnawed at her. Could they truly protect themselves, or would they discover just how deep the shadows ran? When the barricade was finally in place, all eyes turned back to Sarah. A fierce resolve etched on every face. They prepared for the impending confrontation. But would their unity be enough? The weight of their reality pressed down, thick and heavy, for the true battle was just beginning.
and behind the closed walls, the impending doom whispered lies of despair, promising to reveal the darkest secrets of their past.
The darkness loomed on the edge of the alley as the shadowy figures advanced, menacing against the flickering town lights. Heart pounding, Sarah stood among her neighbors and friends, united by fear, yet ignited by courage. They felt the weight of history bearing down on them, but for the first time it seemed they were ready to confront it together. The shouts grew louder, the anxiety in the air thickened, but so did the resolve that surged through Sarah's veins. "We face this together. No one faces the shadows alone," she shouted, her voice cutting clear and strong through the tension. The crowd stirred at her words. Hope sparked in their eyes as they gathered closer around the young woman and her child, protective instincts awakening within them all. Each face reflected a shared determination, a silent agreement wrapped tight as the oncoming figures drew near. "They won't take you." Ethan tugged at Sarah's apron, wide-eyed yet resolute. "Right, Mommy?" "Right, honey," she said, turning to him, blinking back tears. This was for him, for every child who deserved safety and love without fear. "We're going to protect her." The figure leading the charge stepped forward, a chilling sneer forming on his lips. "You think you can protect her from us?" His voice dripped with derision. "You're all just hiding from the truth." The crowd clutched each other tightly, but Sarah felt the tug of something deeper, a community between them all, a collective strength that brushed against the backdrop of fear. "Our truth is that we will stand and fight for what's right. You may try to tear us apart, but we will not bow down." Her voice echoed with conviction, cutting through the darkness. "Who are you to decide what's right?" he scoffed, but hesitated as he took in the united front emerging from the shadows. It was as if the very air around them transformed, filled with the warmth of courage, overwhelming the cold touch of fear. Mrs. Anderson took a step forward, her voice steady even as tremors of uncertainty shimmered beneath the surface. "You don't know what this community can do when we come together. We'll stand for each other, no matter how loud your past may scream." Around her, others echoed similar sentiments, assertive and clear, each word built upon the last, creating a wall stronger than any barricade they had formed, promising connections, shared stories, and a fierce belief in one another created a shield against the oncoming storm. Suddenly, a whisper swept through the group. "We need to get her to safety now." Someone turned and pointed toward a nearby house. It was a daring suggestion, but they could only win if they tried. "Right, we'll get her to Mrs. Jensen's," Sarah yelled, rallying the spirits around her. "Form a line, stay close, don't let them split us apart." They moved, inching forward as a unit, heads high, hearts racing with a newfound fire. The figures haltingly approached, but paused when seeing the solidarity in their stance. It was their uncertainty, their hesitancy that revealed how truly rattled they were by this unexpected resistance. "Don't let them intimidate you," Sarah urged her neighbors, a fierce light in her eyes. "Remember how far we've come." Pushing forward, they formed a barrier around the woman and child, a protective circle that felt impenetrable. With every step they took, the air thickened with resolve, mixed with love that defied their fears. They would not let the past define their future. As they made their way toward Mrs. Jensen's house, a more profound truth took hold. This moment was about more than just safety. It was their collective healing journey. To confront the shadows lurking behind them, they had to embrace that their pasts were tough, but they would forge a brighter path together, brick by brick, story by story. But just as they reached the door, the man who led the shadows charged forward, a shout echoing in desperation. "You can't hide forever. The past will find you." Sarah turned to face him, shaking but resolute.
You're right, we don't hide, but we do learn. We grow. You can't anchor us in darkness when we have come so far into the light." Fear flickered in his eyes, a moment of vulnerability revealing how unsteady his own foundation was. Behind him, his followers hesitated. The shadow cast over their hearts began to lift, each whisper of hope entwining with the reality of their fractured past. "Your voices don't mean anything to me," he shouted, but his bravado faltered. "You're all just puppets caught in a play you don't understand." But people began stepping forward, one by one, each adding to the chorus of defiance. "No," someone said softly at first, then louder. "We will not let you diminish the power of our stories. We choose to believe in each other." The crowd, once uniform in fear, had transformed emotionally. A ripple of connection surged through them, an emotional current shifting the atmosphere. They rallied together, arms linked, voices raised. No longer would they stand divided. As the collective strength pulsed around her, warmth radiated from within. Maybe this was the change, the shift they'd yearned for all along. The shadows began to tremble under the weight of their unity, growing fragile as they channeled laughter, strife, and courage, everything they had carried as individuals into a single beating heart. "Let's go," Sarah shouted, leading the charge into the house, just as the man stepped backward under the mounting power of their conviction. One voice blended into countless others, spiraling upwards into a collective thunder. This battle was not merely about safety. It was about reclaiming their narrative. It was about shouting into the face of uncertainty and telling it, "No more. We are here, we are strong, and we can rise together."
And as the door slammed shut, sealing the outside chaos, Sarah felt a sense of peace, knowing there lay the chance for light to flood in. They would confront whatever came next together. Now the healing journey could truly begin. Finally free of the shadows, they would create a community rooted in love and acceptance. No longer whispering their fears, they would share their hopes until every last crack healed. In the warmth of that sacred space, echoing voices of support filled the air as laughter began to resurface once more, transforming sorrow into strength. And in that moment, hope thrived. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories, and leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your thoughts and feelings about Sarah's journey and this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.